In unconsciousness and a survival hell bent on survival, even religion becomes nothing else than a representative of communism. And, well, whether this is hard to believe for most people or not, this is one unfortunate truth that, well, cannot simply not happen. It will always happen sooner or later, because in the end, a sick society can only prevail when people are disbanded one from the other, when people are designed to live away one from the other. Some people would ask, but why is it that religions can end up doing so? And how is it that religions end up doing so? Well, these two questions have answers that can go for a very lengthy video, and the very simple point is in ignorance, well, ignorance is represented by separation and racing against one another as if everyone is nothing else but a rat that must survive within the maze of life. The idea of any religion in the end is that everyone must function the same, everyone must do the same chores, there is no distinguishing much in between men and women, everyone must behave exactly the same. Anyone who does not worship the one and only single entity, like, well, communism will always revere one single entity, which is basically the head narcissist of the rulership. Well, you see, the point is anyone will suffer if they do not function by the so-called imposed rules. Because there is no such thing in ignorance than to be told something to do. You're never told something to do, you're always imposed that. One has to comprehend that you never worship the narcissist themselves in any shape or form, whether in a narcissistic relationship or even in communism or any other form of government. You always will worship that which is their dream, that which they wish they could reach, that which they wish they could become. And in such cases, you're just worshipping their illusions. See, communism will always be represented by several branches, and one of them will always be the extermination of the populace that it exists over, the populace that it presides over. How many times has each religion been used against people of their own followers? Let's put it short. You have the witch hunts in Christianity. You had all sorts of things like that, right? You had people being killed because the system did not like them. The rulership did not like them. They had ideas which would revolutionize the world. Communism is another branch, that of hating progress. Communism does not like progress because those who impose communism want everyone to function the same, to be stuck in the same misery, in the same cycles. Being stuck in a cycle means you do not progress. Yes, because they are afraid of progress. They do not want people to progress because narcissists are always comfortable in their own pains. They want people to suffer just like them because that is the only moment that they can feel comfortable in the end. Because if they can know you, if they can predict you, they can easily control you. If they cannot control you, you're a bad variable because they will not be able to outsmart you if they cannot predict you. What does prediction mean? You will always know what the people will do. If you keep them unconscious, if you keep them comfortable in their own pains, they will do the same cycles of life again. They will have the same obsessions, they will have the same doings, the same actions again and again. Just like you see people having the same exact habits. You look at them, they're like NPCs from a game. Each and every day at the same exact hour, they will be in the same exact spot. They will do the same exact action. They will do the same exact steps in life. They are not going to evolve in any way, shape, or form. They will just be simple enemies of progress. That is why you see a lot of older people being very aggressive at the newer generations who come up with things, with changes, because they don't want them to evolve. Because once you evolve out of that level of ignorance, out of that layer of pain, you realize you never needed it. So you will automatically want to move away from that. And that will be scary for those who are obsessed with control, because now they no longer will have a pillar of their existence, you. If they can no longer control you, you're a bad variable. That is fearful. That is inducing fear in them because suddenly there is a possible candle that can light the others as well. Suddenly, these people will feel an urge to bully, to pull down anyone who thinks otherwise, because the ignorance who bow down before such layers of ignorance, they give up their humanity, their hopes, their dreams, they give up their inner child, and they become the police itself of such a sick society. And therefore, if they expose themselves too much to people who think otherwise, and if those have the wisdom to present things in a different way, they can actually lead to breaking the illusions within such people. Some people can do it by words, by explaining things in ways in which the feeble logic of the primitives will not be able to counteract, and that will lead to some of their illusions being broken. This will mean that those will become more aggressive. The point is, people who think otherwise, see, the very simple point is sooner or later they can break illusions within others, because others only have comfort of their pains as the only stability in their life. People who think and do otherwise easily become an example and will draw attention from the others, because when everyone looks the same, someone who looks different will always draw most of the attention. People will become innately curious. The moment someone becomes curious, that is the first layer of awareness, that is the first fear that will be drawn in a society, because in a society you're not allowed to be curious. When you look at most of the ignorance around you, they are never curious, though they just constantly scroll through the reels that they see on their phone. They always watch movies, they always do this, they always do that, they always keep themselves busy, just because they want a way out of their ignorance, a way out of their pain. Because in the end, nothing that they do out of a sheer curiosity, because they buried their inner child a long time ago. So when we think about things, see, the life goes on in multiple points and shapes and dimensions of experience at the mental and emotional layer. And well, there are other layers as well. When it comes to religion, it will impose its feminism as well if it becomes a tool of communism, because communism has another pillar of support, that of feminism. Now, people think feminism is nothing but a means to elevate women. In a sick society, everything will be shown to you in such a way that it looks as a nice tool that will elevate you. No, in a sick society, everything that looks nice is only nice because it will elevate the ones who are in control. And their elevation means they have yet another layer of control over you, because that is how ignorance functions. Ignorance can only be led by fear. They can only be controlled. They cannot be contained. They will want a way out. They will want to do something. They want to be kept busy. That is why religions give you all the means to be busy. No religion till today, especially the Abrahamic ones, has ever survived without being changed, without being altered to fit the minds of the sick that were in control. Yes, of course, there were a lot of people who were virtuous, but in the end, in a sick society, those will not be taken into account, or they will be taken into account at a superficial level. They will be turned into symbols of worship, but those symbols of worship will fade in time because they will become nothing else but commercials. Look, for example, in Christianity. We don't bolster ourselves with Christmas because it's not fully a Christian aspect. But what has Christmas become over the last decades? It has become nothing else but a commercial aspect, where all the corporations inflate the prices, then lie to you that the current new price is the price on sale. Well, look at Easter, the most important, in the end, the most important and the one that should be revered the most in Christianity. Well, what is it else other than, well, nothing else but a commercial, right? A set day for commercials, right? When you look at how Christianity has been altered by the Zionism that has been infiltrated within, Christianity has been adapted to a death cult because it gives way more attention to Christmas than to the idea of Easter. It should do that, right? You should pay more attention to Christmas, which is the birth of Jesus Christ, than to the actual death of Jesus Christ. But a death cult does the opposite. Yes, it pays more attention to the death, to the killing, because that is what you must be attuned to in society. In a sick society, that is what you have to get used to, that you're never worth anything, that the only important thing to you is death. Why do mainstream media just bombard you with death, with decay, with separation, with treason, with people dying, with genocide and such? It is because that is the only thing that counts to a sick society. A communist society always presides by giving power to the minorities in order to exterminate the majority. You can see the highest example in Russia, but in other countries as well. You can see the best example of communism nowadays, especially in the Western Europe, where all the minorities are given powers. They are allowed to say anything about the majority, and the majority is shunned away. It's kicked out of its own jobs, and it is even made legal, especially in England. It is made legal now that you can say anything racist about them. Reverse racism is something that functions with communism, because communism has one great core. It makes your suffering so tempting, it makes your suffering so enjoyable that you become its own police force, because you cannot resist its tendrils, you cannot resist its charms. That's why communism will always be successful to ignorance. And religion will be sooner or later entrenched into that, because everything that is birthed out of ignorance will become nothing else but a mark of it, will become nothing else but something that will bolster ignorance. And ignorance will become the flag of anything that is outside of it sooner or later, because ignorance makes everyone weak. Ignorance pulls you out of your own roots. Ignorance strips everything that is sacred from you, your culture, everything. Why do you think the utmost of communism is the idea of cancel culture? Because communism wants you to have no roots, because it wants everyone to live and function the same. When everyone lives and functions the same, like it's always happened, for example, in Europe. Look at most of the horrible things in the world happening in Europe. The Black Plagues never happened because they happened. They were designed to happen. And usually around 100 years, there was a new plague. There was a new great event that would kill a great majority of the people. In this communism, it was highly important that they would bring minorities. That is why the black slavery began, because the ones who ruled the so-called world in behind Christianity, they needed minorities to be brought, because their plans hundreds of years in the future required that. And you have to comprehend, people who do occult or high level occultism, they know how to make use of constructs, which is the designing of plans and designing of certain energies to be made use of hundreds of years even into the future, because it will be of great use to those who will come after them. And when people are ignorant in your own time, it is easy to construct such complexes and to teach people, to guide them wrongly towards that. What do you see in communism? You are being taught everything that is against your own design, everything that is against your own humanity. You are designed as a tool, not as a human. You are designed as a number, not as a being. You are designed to be nothing else but another rat in a race against your own kind. Children fight one another in schools for information that will not give them anything but marks and bad memories, because those pieces of information will rarely be made any use of when you become an adult. And you are taught since childhood to fight your peers, your friends, anyone whom you'd hold dear, right? You fight even your parents, who have been taught a different thing, because how you rule a sick society is that each generation has to be taught to function the same way. Each new generation has to be taught to function in a different way, because that's how you create a divide in between families. Communism is all about the destruction of family, because communism cannot exist through families, because family as a word means respect. The man respects the woman respects the man, and the parents love their child. But in communism, each of those three elements has to be a drone, and they have to compete one against the other. That is why one of the greater pillars of communism is the woman, right? The greater pillar is feminism, because feminism's purpose is to turn women into slaves of their own ego, not to protect them. When your sick society tells you that you have to be protected, that means you have to be contained. You do not contain the woman in her own emotions, because she will always beat you at that, especially if you're not emotionally mature and she is. You will always contain the woman into her own stupid illusions, into her own thoughts and her own attachments. Because when you create a sick society that suffers because children cannot get used to their parents' idiotic past, and they are always forced to live a life that they do not like, they will separate themselves from their parents and they will hate their parents. It is the first assault on the family. When you design a means through which you want women to work the life of men, you will never have happy women to do that. Only women who are broken enough that they will accept that comfort of the pain. Because when a woman thinks or reaches a level of existence, of awareness, when she thinks she is not worthy of anything, she will embrace pain as the only thing that she knows, and she will impose it upon anyone she meets and anyone who she will invite into her life. And she will impose that pain most specifically on her children. That is how you build up a sick society, by generational traumas, by things that will mark people and will have them live in fear. And fear makes you give up your humanity. Everyone else becomes nothing else but a variable, something that has to be used even for your own survival. That is why a lot of people only make use of you, because they can get something from you. Your emotions, your money, your stability, your calmness. In the end, everything comes nothing else than masks, because you're not dealing with people, you're dealing with their traumas. That is why wise people will always feel alone, because they cannot play the game. They were not meant to be players of the game. They are knowledgeable of the fact that they are nothing else but viewers. They are nothing else but spectators of this so-called game of life. While the primitive minded become players, because they cannot distinguish reality from the filth of their mind. To them, the reality is only the thoughts that they can think of, and the obsession to constantly negate their emotions, because emotion means a state of direction. It is energy in motion, and it will be an important part, an important piece of your intuition that will guide you. Your body will guide you through your emotions, but ignorance does not want guidance. That is why when you look at the feminists, for example, people who have become obsessive and fanatical, they do not want guidance, because guidance means a structure which is beyond the comfort of their pains. To be a fanatic means nothing else than to enjoy your own pain, to not care about yourself, but to highly value a certain idea that doesn't give you anything, but a presupposed emotion. Fanaticism is all about, in the end, emotion, but people worship that idea, not the emotion itself. People who are fanatical, they know that they get a certain state of well-being out of worshipping that idea, but it is the attachment towards that emotion that they are worshipping, not the idea themselves. When you see people who are fanatical in religion, for example, religious fanatics, they are only obsessing about their attachment to the presupposed emotion of calmness, of stability, of feeling safe, especially safety, because that is what matters the most in sickness. In ignorance, safety matters the most. They feel safe alongside people who function the same only. That is another form of communism. Whether it is at a level of a group or not, they will always agglutinate to others who function only the same, and they will shun away everything and everyone that even thinks or feels like functioning differently. Yes? And these ignorant minds, these puny minds, will always interpret things. They cannot comprehend or grasp reality because they're lost. Once someone gives up their childhood, once someone gives up their inner child, their emotions, once someone gives up even their awareness because they want to run away from pain and numb themselves down, they are simply no longer humans. They cannot grasp reality, they cannot comprehend it, they can only interpret things. When we all know interpretations are not always the same with accepting reality. Only by living through emotion can one have the courage to open themselves to the world. Yes, it can feel crappy at most times because the quality of the people around you is crappy. And well, the pains within you also feel crappy, but the truth will always feel uncomfortable. The truth will always break you, but it will set you free. Ignorance will never set you free. It will put you into more and more layers of ignorance, whether it is through religion, through culture, through anything that has been trained by ignorance to simply bow down to it. Hopefully this video raised a bit of awareness. You are appreciated. Take care, enjoy life, and well, this being said, Ferenc Jan Bord signing out.